Welcome to the Electrical and Electronic Engineering lecture series. Our topic today is Review of Electrostatics and Electromagnetism, Part 2. Your anchor person is Professor Michael C. Ndinechi. Today we are continuing with electromagnetism. Please, it's expected that you have followed in part 1 so that this part 2 will make a lot of sense. Types of capacitors. We have some types, many types of capacitors. Amongst them are the A capacitor. This consists of one set of fixed plates and another set of movable plates. It is used in radio sets just to vary the capacitance. Paper capacitors, the electrodes consist of metal foils interleaved with paper impregnated with wax or oil and rolled into a compact form. Mica capacitors, for high-frequency circuits and is subject to wide variation in temperatures. The polycarbonate capacitors, these are recently developed in the field of plastic insulating materials. The maximum operating temperature is between 125 to 150 degrees centigrade. Electrolytic capacitors, the commonly used type consists of two aluminum foils, one with an oxide film and one without. The foils being interleaved with a stable electrolyte. It has the following features. 1. The insulator resistance is comparatively low. 2. Suitable for circuits where the voltage applied to the capacitor never reverses its direction. And 3. Used also where large capacitance is required. Equivalent value of capacitors connected in series. If a series of capacitors connected as shown below is given a charge Q, that is minus Q on the first plate and plus Q on the last, the same charge appears on each of the capacitors in the series. This is because the electrons put onto the first plate of the first capacitor C1 repel an equal number of electrons away from the second plate of C1, leaving it with a charge or a positive charge plus Q onto the first plate of C2. Thus, the first plate of C2 acquires a charge minus Q, which repels electrons away from the second plate of C2, leaving it with a positive charge. And so the chain reaction goes on. Each capacitor ends up with a charge minus Q on its left-hand plate and plus Q on its right-hand plate. Because the capacitors are connected in series, the potential difference across the whole system is the sum of the voltages across each capacitor. Hence, V total will be equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3 and so on to Vn. Question 17. The total charge on the whole system is equal to the charge on each capacitor. Hence, Qt, which is the total charge, equal to Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 until you get to the end Qn. So if we divide equation 17 by 18, it will give us Vt over Qt equals V1 over Q1, V2 plus V2 over Q2 plus V3 over Q3, and so on till you get to Vn over Qn, question 19. But from our equation 8 in part 1 of the lecture, C is equal to Q over V, meaning that V over Q will be equal to 1 over C. Therefore, equation 19 becomes 1 over Ct equals 1 over C1 plus 1 over C2 plus 1 over C3 until you get to Cn. Therefore, Ct equals the combined capacitance of the individual capacitors C1, C2, C3 to Cn. Figure 5 shows capacitors connected in series. Likewise, if capacitors are connected in parallel, another thing happens. So we say, when capacitors are connected in parallel, as shown in Fig 6, the same potential difference exists across each of them. The total charge on the system is therefore the sum of the charges on each capacitor. That is, Qt will be equal to Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 till you get to Qn. Dividing through by V, that is the potential difference across each, gives Ct to be equal to C1 plus C2 plus C3 and so on. Now, this leads us to electromagnetism, because we have looked at all the things that gave rise to a voltage in any circuit. So we want to see how the magnetic effect aids in generating voltage in any circuit. Whenever flux linkage in a circuit is changed, there is an induced electromagnetic force known as EMF. Lenz's law tells us that the direction of this induced EMF is such as to tend to oppose the change in flux, that is, the change in current. Self-inductance. When an EMF is induced in a circuit, the self-inductance is proportional to the rate of change of flux linkage within the circuit. If we consider an air-cooled coil carrying a variable current, as shown in Fig 7, the flux will be proportional to the current if the number of turns on the coil remains constant. The flux linkage will also be proportional to the rate of change of the current. The self-inductance is represented by L, and the EMF induced will be given by L di dt, equation 21. The unit of self-inductance is the Henry. In a coil of N turns, the induced EMF is given by N d phi over dt, where N d phi is the flux linkage of the circuit. If we combine equations 21 and 22, we will have that L di dt is equal to N d phi dt, from which L will be equal to N d phi di. Therefore, a circuit has a self-inductance of 1 Henry when an EMF of 1 volt is induced by a rate of current change equal to 1 ampere per second. Mutual inductance. Consider a varying current I in coil 1 of Fig 8. The changing current I1 establishes a magnetic flux Phi1. Part of this flux links only coil 1 and is called leakage flux Phi11. The remaining flux Phi12 links also coil 2 as shown. The induced voltage in coil 2 is given by Faraday's law, which says E in the second coil, E2, is equal to N2 d phi12 over dt, where N2 is the number of coils in the second coil. Since phi12 is related to current I, V2 is proportional to the rate of change of current. E2 then will be equal to m di dt, equation 24, where m is the mutual inductance between the two coils. Combining equations 23 and 24 yields that E2 is equal to N2 d phi 12 dt over dt equals m di dt, from where m is equal to N2 d phi 12 di, equation 25. Hysteresis. This occurs because the linking up of the electric current loops resulting from applications of external field involves reordering of the material lattice structure. Upon removal of the external field, some of the ordering remains and the material remain magnetized. When a material is subject to AC excitation, the resultant flux density D is then the difference between the up and the down portions of the circle and does not return to zero. This is an important effect when large number of electrical devices using magnetic circuits operating at mains frequency is contemplated. If you look at the diagram on Fig 9, it's called the BH curve or the hysteresis loop. Now, let's see how it works. It features an initial magnetization curve, OQ, which approaches the saturation flux density value B asymptotically for large values of the excitation field, intensity H. Upon reversal of the H field, the BH curve follows the path QSX until saturation is reached for the reversed field at D. At H equals 0, a remnant field B persists. High values of B are associated with permanent magnet. An excitation field of minus H is required before B can be brought to 0 after a positive excursion. In the second half, the BH curve does not return along the initial path, but along DYQ, thus completing the hysteresis loop. If the excitation falls short of that required to saturate the materials, then smaller hysteresis loop exists. The topic we have listened to helps us to get used to capacitance, inductance that formed the lump components in any electric and electronic circuit. So we will be meeting this L and C in our subsequent modules. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Drop your comments in the comment section.